what I meant.
Look, Joe, it was so nice to get back with you at Broadcast Pioneers when we're over there at the Ballackinwood Country Club. Every month they have the meeting, and Joe and myself reunited after seeing him many years ago with my mother taking a picture. I was glad to see that you're active at Broadcast Pioneers.
Well, very much so, and I'm still basically active in the business. I'm still kind of casting around. I still have a lot of opinions and no place to give them. And
we're going to get to that. You give your opinions today because we want to hear it.
I shout at the walls a lot. Yes. But I do commercials and voiceovers.
Oh, by the way.
That's right.
John saw you on a, what was it, insurance commercial?
Yeah. Doing commercials now, too.
Yeah, I've been doing those. And I go to New York for auditions at times.
And I think you had some pretty girls with you, so we're going to get back to that.
Well, that's what the script called for.
Oh, isn't
you didn't supply them yourself?
Yeah, are you kidding me?
This is what it all came back down. About 6 months to 8 months ago, Joe had the guts, which I admire him for that, at Broadcast Pioneers over at the Ballackinwood Country Club, to stand up, and maybe I should let him describe what he said, because I would be not doing it perfectly.
Well, I think the subject was news. We had one of the news people in from one of the stations,
right.
and all I said was that if you look on all the stations, the cables as well as the local stations, you see a preponderance of pretty females.
Right.
I mean, let's face it, and 95% of them are blondes. And
that's a requirement.
And yes, they can speak well. I mean, that's also a requirement. And I'm not saying that they aren't smart. I'm not saying that some of them aren't pretty good journalists. But what I'm saying is that there is sort of like, which one is the prettiest? It's almost as if the executives in those buildings they're competing
with each other.
Who's got the best looking lady on, so that they can get more of the male audience interested, not necessarily in the news, but just to look.
Joe, I agree with you. I don't think they really give them an audition who is better in delivering the sports or news or weather, whichever the case may be. I think it's really the beauty is what gets them in the door.
Well, yeah, I mean, to me, it's somewhat chauvinistic. I mean, I would much rather, years ago, there was a great reporter at the United Nations. Her name was Pauline Frederick.
Oh, yes.
And she was, like, at the time,
matronly,
55 years old, but an attractive woman. I mean, she was still... To listen to that woman, you could sit there and listen to her all day because she knew what the heck she was talking about.
Yeah, but she was very plain, Jane.
Well, at that point, I guess you could call it that. But to me, she still had.
She had smarts. She knew her.
Yeah, but she wasn't homely in any sense of the word. I think she was very, very attractive for her age. And all I'm saying is that it's very difficult to find people like that, or for people like that who have this kind of experience, who've been in broadcasting for a number of years, to get a job like that anymore. I mean, if you're over 30, you got a big problem.
Right.
Because that's all they're hiring is the 20 and maybe 35s at the most. But if you start pushing 40, except for like Katie Couric, who has built her own legacy on an early morning show for a long time, it'll be interesting to see whether or not she continues her run as an evening anchor.
Right.
Because that's another audience, and it's another ball of wax in the sense that she's delivering straight hard news now. She's not doing all these puff pieces, even though she talks about news occurrences on a morning show.
Yes, and she's in a very hot spot with competition from the other two networks.
But being very well compensated.
Oh, I'm sure. So no matter how long it lasts, Joe, these women are here, and they're here to stay. But
well, that's fine.
Joe, I feel it's all right to have maybe a girl on weather and news, but what do you think about an anchor sports girl? I was shocked that one of the stations are doing it, or two of them, right here in Philadelphia.
Well,
sports.
That's all. That's really kind of old news in a way. I mean, a lot of ladies have gotten into the sports thing, and
we didn't have an anchor. We had them covering, but we didn't have an anchor sitting there doing the sports.
Well, yeah, they do more fill-in stuff for weekends now. They aren't necessarily on all during the week. The major anchors are on during the week, and although some of the ladies, from some of the men that I've seen, they could probably replace some of the men that I've seen. But what I'm saying is, I mean, and I'm not necessarily talking about anybody in this town. I've just seen some bad sports anchors all over the country. But what I'm saying is that a lot of these women now are much more into the sports realm than they ever were before. Years and years ago, I mean, when I was in high school, I mean, the rules for playing women's basketball, they had 6 players. they had 3 on offense and 3 on defense, and neither of the 3 could pass the center line. They had to stay on their side of the court. That was the old women's basketball rules years and years ago.
Jeez.
Now these ladies are athletes, and they've worked hard at it. They have trained, and to watch them play like softball for the U.S. American team and how they can throw a ball. I mean, you know, the old phrase, "Oh, he throws like a girl."
Yeah,
that doesn't make it anymore. I mean, it's like the girls on the LPGA. They have a commercial that says, "I swing like a girl. I swing like a girl. I swing like a girl." And at the end of it, it says, "Can you?" So, in other words, there are some outstanding female athletes, and you watch the soccer team and all the other things that they do, the swimmers.
Well, how about the reporters? A year ago, John, you remember maybe only a couple of years ago, there was flack about girls going into the locker rooms.
Yeah, we had, as a matter of fact, when I was at Channel 10, we had a real problem. I mean, you know, I used to say, well, wait a minute now, if the women can come into the male locker room, then I want to have the right to go into Chris Everett's locker room and interview her while she's getting dressed, you know, but it didn't work out that way.
No more reason to be a sports writer.
They brought you out to an interview room and so forth. But when that first happened, I went into the Dodgers locker room when Tom Lasorda was still managing. And we had a very pretty young female camera girl with us, as well as my sound man. And believe me, I'll tell it right out. A lot of the Dodger players were really upset that she was in the locker room.
They really were.
They were upset, and some of them even pranced around her, stark naked, and
without a towel on, at least.
Nothing. No, and she maintained her cool, and never took her eyes off the subject of the guy I was interviewing and so forth. And then we got hustled out of there because I hustled her out of there because I didn't want her to be subjected to that anymore.
Sure.
I almost lodged a complaint. I mean, I know Tommy Lasorda, and I would have gone in there to talk to him about it, but I didn't have the time because we were fighting a deadline to get the stuff back to the station. So, and then I did tell management. They decided to leave it alone and didn't want to, create anything with the ball club or anything with the Phillies, but. It took a long while for the players to get used to the fact that females could go into the locker room even when they were still in the showers and so forth. Now, what the teams did, they made up these like big towels for the players, which had Velcro around the middle, and they could just put them on and come out of the shower with those on and so forth. And then they dressed in semi-private privacy, and, But believe me, I mean, I saw plenty of women in those locker rooms there, those reporters that were sneaking looks, let me tell you. And, yeah, so.
If you just joined us, you're listening to Joe Pellegrino. Yes, he's my guest. I'm RJ along with John Zito. I keep saying Zito.
No, you're such a godfather.
Yes, that's what it is, yeah. All right, anyway, if you just joined us, this is 1540 in Philadelphia, 50,000 watts of power across New Jersey, Delaware, and, of course, Pennsylvania. But if you miss part of the show, you always can go to www.wnwr.com. Thank you, John. Okay. And, of course, it repeats all week long. And, of course, people are listening to us now on the Internet coast to coast. And for all the people that Joe spoke nicely about in San Francisco, we are sorry. Don't cancel the RJ Disco show out there. I still love San Francisco.
I met a lot of great people out in San Francisco. But they're very busy being San Franciscans.
I know they are, and I want to remind everybody on 92.1 FM, Friday nights from 7 to 9, you can join us. We're doing the Disco USA show over 92.1, coming from